Hi everyone, welcome to this week's video where we are in my garden. I'm just going to give you a quick tour around so you can see what I'm growing, what vegetables are here, how to look after them if you're going to grow them yourself in your gardens. That's about it really, just a quick one for today, so let's start going around. So there are pretty much two sections to my garden. Over this side we've got the mostly shady area, so over there I've got plants that cope quite well in the shade. And then this side tends to be more full sun. The shady side is mostly created by this crazy over-the-top ivy. There's an awful lot of really big bushes in this garden that were here when we moved in. There's not an awful lot I can do about them other than prune them, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to move them out so I can grow more vegetables. But that ivy is the bane of my life most of the year. It requires so much cutting back just to make sure enough light comes into the garden. Annoyingly though, the flock of sparrows that live here love it. I'm in a permanent argument with myself as to whether or not to keep it or not, because the birds love it. A wild dog has appeared. Hey Cookies! He's a good cow, huh? You're probably going to see a lot of gratuitous images of the dog in this video. She's just so cute. Oh, look at her. So in this corner, as well as a bunch of stuff that really needs to go to the tip, I've got the tomatoes, peppers and a chilli plant as well. They've only recently gone out, a bit late, but a lot of my seedlings started off pretty poorly this year. I think I just started them off too late really. Peppers aren't looking too bad though. I've recently learned you can overwinter a pepper, so I'll be trying that this year. What you do is you prune them back and keep them indoors until the next season, and then when you bring them outside the next year, you're starting from a full plant rather than just a seedling, so that should work quite well, hopefully. The seeds for these two just came out of a store-bought pepper, so Morrison's had some really good peppers in one time, and I thought, you know, these are so good, I'll grow the seeds. And it's clearly worked, because I've got two pretty decent looking plants there. Just behind, it's dying off now and full of weeds, but that's my wild garlic pot. So I pinched a bulb or two from out in the fields and brought it home for me to use. A couple of seed pods on there, so I think I'll bury that when it's ready and grow some more. My tomatoes are just cherry tomatoes, so they'll need attaching to this bamboo cane when they're tall enough because they won't be able to hold themselves up. But I normally get quite good tomatoes off of my plants, so even though they've started a bit small, I think we'll be good to go for most of the year. It's quite warm now, so they should put on a bit of a growth spurt now that they're in the ground. I grow an awful lot of my vegetables in pots because I don't really have any other option. So it's a good idea to keep your pots really well fertilised. So mine, you can see I've just got a little bit of bloodfish and bone on there to revitalise the soil while the plants are growing. All plants will appreciate that, flowers, vegetables, you name it, they all love it. So it's a good idea to get yourself plenty of that if you're growing in tubs. This is the bee station. They're just about done with now, but in here I've got some solitary species of bees that have made nests in all the tubes. So they block them up with dirt. So each one of those has got several different cells with a bee egg inside it. And next year they'll hatch out and repeat the process. They'll go out, get more mud, lay more eggs and carry on. You enjoying the sun, Cookie? This is probably her favourite sun patch. Next to my bees I've got my fig tree. Nice little small one at the moment, it's a couple of years old. Hoping to get some fruit off of it this year. It was a bit too small previous couple of years that I've had it. But it's looking pretty good. So it should be alright. They produce better fruit when they're stressed, so keep them in a pot that's a bit too small for it, and you should get some really delicious fruit off of them. The fruits tend to have to ripen over winter, so cover it in a frost fleece if you need to help the fruits survive the winter. Next to that we've got my radish tub. So this is already a second crop of radishes here. Planted them a couple of days ago and they've already started sprouting. Radishes grow really quickly, so they're an excellent salad crop for pretty much all the way through the warm season, spring to autumn really. I've got a mixture in there. There's Diana, French breakfast and rainbow mixed radishes in there. So I'll find out what each one is once they grow a bit bigger. When you're growing fruits and vegetables in the garden, it's a really good idea to have some plants here to attract the pollinators. They'll flower themselves obviously, but if you have some extra plants kicking around to attract just a few more bees and butterflies, they'll help your bountiful harvest of the year. So this is my cornflower. If you keep deadheading the dead flower heads, they'll flower all the way through the season. I've got no idea what that is. This came with the garden. Took a couple of years for it to flower. It looks a little bit cactusy. It's a weird one. I like it though. And then this one, a Guillaume Koi. No idea how to pronounce that really. Got this one from Walmer Castle. I just really liked the bright orange flowers. Very pretty. And then next door in a big trough, got my mint plants. And despite the fact that mint is meant to be a deterrent to aphids, there's quite a few aphids on these mint plants. But I grow this for tea, so I just snip the tops off every now and then and dehydrate them, and then you can use them to make mint tea. It's delicious. And I didn't even grow it from seed or anything. I actually bought the pots of fresh mint from the supermarket and just planted that straight in the ground. If you're going to grow mint in your garden, keep it in a pot, because if you put it straight into the ground, it will go absolutely mental, and it will be really problematic when you try to cut it back or get rid of it at all, because the root systems are crazy on a mint. They will trail out everywhere. Really problematic plant if you let it get out of control. A little bit of half sun, half shade patch. I've got my rocket. Rocket always does really well. I don't really have to do much with it apart from sow the seed and water it every now and then. It's deliciously peppery. This one's just a wild rocket, and I don't thin the plants out either. I just kind of let them go a bit mad. Not how you're supposed to do it, but I've never had any trouble from that. They self-seed quite well as well, so hopefully next year this should come back again in just as much abundance. Now this gorgeous one is my black lace elderflower. Bought it as an ornamental, but actually you can eat it. The flowers and the berries are just as edible as any other elderflower is. It's absolutely gorgeous. I haven't tried eating this one yet, it's always been a bit too small. It's just about getting a decent size now. Moving over to the slightly shadier side, I've got my kiwi vine. It's never fruited, and I've recently found out it's because it needs to have both a male and a female plant near to each other to get fruit, so this is probably never going to grow any kiwis for me. Oh well, I tried. But in the bottom, obviously there's a lot of space down there that's not being used by the kiwi, so I've actually put some shallot seeds down there. So hopefully a couple of shallots will come popping up soon. And then next door I've got my herb bucket. Got sage, looking a bit ropey. Had some serious aphid problems earlier in the season. I think they've mostly gone now and the plant has survived, so that's good. And a new little lavender down here as well. I love lavender, but so do bees and other insects, so I've got quite a few of these kicking around. Not sprouted yet, but I've got purple basil seeds in there as well. Apparently that is also an aphid deterrent, so growing it to eat, but also to try and keep the aphid population down in the garden this year. Another double planted pot. I'm not sure if it's going to stay double planted. This is a pumpkin, so it's probably going to get really, really big. I have 3 other pumpkin plants already in the garden. These just sprouted up from a load of seeds I threw into the bucket last year. I wasn't expecting them to germinate at all, but they did, and I ended up with a real overabundance of pumpkins. I've given quite a few away, actually. Yeah, I love pumpkin, so maybe I will keep all 4. We'll see how it goes. Next door to it, I've got the green bean. It's a little weak and fragile at the moment. I think I kept it indoors a bit too long in its starter pot and it's suffered for it a little bit, but again, I'm hoping now it's out, it will be okay. It was having real trouble acclimatising during the really hot spell we had, so I was just a bit too mamby-pamby about getting it out here, but it's cooled down a little bit now, so hopefully it'll be okay. And then down here's a lettuce pot. Put a trellis on the back because I think I'm going to do peas in it next year. Again, the lettuce is sort of coming towards the end a little bit now. I didn't thin this one out either. Again, you're supposed to, but I didn't. I don't really mind. So I just cut and come again on this one, cut off the nice fresh looking leaves, and then it will revitalise a little bit. But I should probably use whatever's left just to turn over in the soil and put back in a few nutrients that this used up to grow. And a bit of a failed experiment almost. This is spinach, but it's not looking great. It's going to flower. It stayed very, very small, but it had real trouble germinating, so I'm not quite sure what I did here. I should have to look into that one. Oh well, I tried. Empty pot, but this has got kale seeds in it. Really worried about the aphids on this one. Apparently aphids really love kale, so hopefully I can get them dealt with before that sprouts. And then my favourite of the ornamentals, I've had this plant for about 8 years. This is my Japanese maple, or the Acer. It's a gorgeous thing, I love it. And there's my mum's bamboo in the background as well. This is like the Japanese section of the garden. Garden table. Doesn't get used for anything other than my pots and mess making, really. This one's got my dandelions in it. Except I think that might be a nettle, which is nice news for me. Wasn't expecting that at all. When these are ready, I'll be eating the flowers, definitely. I know, I'm mad. Cultivating dandelions. I highly recommend you do it though. Very tasty. There's a romaine lettuce seed in here. Only planted a couple of days ago. We'll have to wait a while for that to germinate. There's my other seedlings hanging around here as well. Probably going to give these ones away because they're all spares. And then this tray, we've got microgreens in it. So I'll just lift it up so you can see. It's peas. I really love pea shoots. They're quite hard to buy because you can't really find them anywhere. Also really expensive. So all I've done is bought a box of dried marifat peas, soaked them for 4 hours, and then popped them in this tray of soil with this other tray over the top. In the darkness they should germinate. Push this tray up a little bit so I know where they've come to life. And then when they're probably about that tall, you can harvest the shoots and eat them in salads. And then you can do them successionally as well. So once this one's sprouted, I might plant another one and put it next to it, so I'll have plenty of pea shoots going. If you don't have a garden, you can do these indoors. You don't have to keep them outdoors at all. It's probably easier to do them indoors, in fact. So even if you don't have any space, you can still garden. Another random tub. It's got some romaine lettuce seeds in it again, waiting for them to germinate. This is my grandma's agapanthus. Beautiful plant. When it pops up with the flowers, it's a really sort of deep blue colour. It's absolutely gorgeous. And loves being pot bound as well. It's been in the same pot since it's been planted, essentially. It's really quite old now. I don't know if you can see any roots in there. It's quite difficult actually. There's an awful lot of roots in there. It's extremely pot bound, but loves it. Up in the top section of the garden, we've got the bird feeding station. This is where the sparrows like to hang out for most of the day, or at least when I'm not standing here. And then we've got my beds. These are the only parts that are in ground that I can actually use at the moment. This took a lot of digging. Absolutely carpeted with ivy before I started. But I've managed to get it all clear during this lovely, lovely lockdown. There's a borage plant just there. Don't know if that's going to be okay, but I'm hoping to get some flowers off of that. And then these are my pumpkins, the rest of them anyway. A bit smaller than the one in the pot. A couple of them have got transplant shock at the moment, but I think they're going to be okay. This one has got flowers coming on it. So even if they only do one pumpkin each, that will do so many meals for us. It'll be ideal, really. And again, nothing there yet, but there are leek seeds over there. That's part of my winter crop that I've just started. I've never done winter farming before, but I'm trying it this year. Self-sufficiency and all that. And then between my fences of hedge trimmings, this is my wildflower section. So I just got a random bag of wildflower seeds, chucked them in, and they've kind of gone mad, which is good. It's what I want. I want the pollinators to come here and pollinate my vegetables. So, good. Next door to the pumpkins and wildflowers, we've got my first courgette. Love courgettes. I've always had real success with them, growing them. First one I've had in the ground here, though. You're looking at that thinking, what's that? That's coffee grounds. dig coffee grounds into your soil and it should help break up the clay. This particular patch is really bad for clay. And in the sun it goes completely solid and horrible. So digging that through should help break it down over time. It's already improved the soil to some extent. And then over the back, we've got a row of sunflowers, Russian giants. Can't wait for them to flower. This will be the first year, if these survive, first year I've ever successfully grown sunflowers. Which is a ridiculous statement because they should be really easy to grow. I'm hoping to keep some seeds to grow again next year, some to feed to the birds and some for me to eat as well. Of course, if you do grow crops like sunflowers and pumpkins or squash or anything like that that have seeds you can keep for the next year, I mean, in theory, you will never have to buy those seeds again. Just store them appropriately, cool, dry place, dehydrate them if you need to, and then you can plant your seeds again next year. So, self-sufficiency at its best. This is my final section that's planted, but again, you can't see it yet. There's parsnips in here. Now, they're really slow growers, again, part of my winter crop. But to help with the light in the winter, I've chopped back an awful lot of the bushes here. And like I said, this garden came with an awful lot of huge bushes, and they don't fit in the spots they've been planted in. So, always be clever about what you're doing with shrubs, because they come with a label of being easy to care for and all the rest of it, but no, these are an absolute nightmare. That hydrangea is the worst. I don't even know what this thing is. That was a Japanese meadowsweet, which was admittedly quite pretty and at least had some flowers on it that were attractive to the pollinators, but it got powdery mildew, so I had to cut the whole thing back. Quite upsetting, but you know, these bushes are the bane of my existence. There's a box and a couple of fuchsias and some firs, and then this huge thing in the centre here. Never plant your gardens like this, people. Oh my god, look at the space it's got. If you've got this kind of space, just put wildflowers in. You don't have to look after them and they won't overgrow. Got it? Got it. This particular bush, in fact, I think is probably the root of all my aphid troubles, because the leaves are carpeted in blackfly. I've never seen that many blackfly on anything. Might be why the hoverflies like it so much once they start appearing later in the year, but they're not here yet to eat them, so they're everywhere. I have, however, ordered a ladybird tower, which it's on a stake, so I'm going to stick it in the ground somewhere down here, and then order myself some live ladybirds, which you can do if you're gardening, and then you release them into the little house with some bedding and sometimes some food, and they tend to like to nest in wherever you put them, so you can keep yourself a breeding population going, and they should hopefully eat all of my greenfly, because they're just everywhere and they're really giving me some trouble this year, and I don't want to use pesticides or anything because that's not okay. So get yourself some ladybirds if you're having as much trouble as me. Lacewings too, we get a lot of those here, but again, not quite the season for them, so keeping an eye out for them. Can't wait to see them. These two pots I'm excited about. They're not here yet, and I'm slowly filling up another two behind that chair. These are going to be for my dwarf fruit trees. Yes, dwarf fruit trees. Very excited about that. I love fruit trees, but they're very, very big, as you can imagine. But I've recently discovered that some species have been bred to stay very, very small and grow in tubs only about this big. So I've actually got two apple trees, a cherry tree, plum, and a pear tree coming. They should be on their way soon. Just filling their homes up ready for them when they get here. Oh, I'm so excited about that. So that was a vague kind of tour of what's going on in my garden at the moment. Mostly vegetables, mostly big bushes. I hate the bushes. Help me, get rid of the bushes. I just wish I had more space for planting. That's it really. As I said, I'm going to try growing in winter this year. Got some swedes, celeriac, cabbages, kale, carrots, things like that that are all going to go in the ground after my spring and summer crops have died back. You would have seen a lot of pots. I've got nearly everything in pots. It's not a problem. You can grow full veg gardens year on year with pots. You just got to make sure you keep the soil nice and well balanced nutrient wise. Cookie. She wanted to sit on my lap. I mean, would you say no? No, you wouldn't say no, would you? You will have also noticed a lack of flowers. I know I said if you're gardening vegetables, you need plenty of flowers to attract everything, but it's all still popping up out of the ground at the moment. It's on its way. but not quite here yet. So I've got French marigolds popping up in the tomato plants. They're going to be companion plants to them, so hopefully it should keep pests at bay, I'm hoping. Got the lavender coming up all over the place. I've bought quite a few lavender plants, so they're going to be everywhere. Bee balm is almost ready to go out. Got nasturtiums, there's black-eyed Susans and everything that are just sort of seedlings at the moment. They'll be ready soon, but they're going to be helping me out in helping all the crops to fruit, pretty much. So yeah, it's easy to do it on a small scale. You just got to work quite intensively in what you've got. Highly recommend it though, because homegrown veg is the best. And if you certainly can, do it all the way through the year and you'll save yourself a fortune on your food bill. You would have heard me mention that I dehydrate the mint. You can dehydrate other things as well. So if you've got beans, or I might try dehydrating the pumpkin when that goes actually. I did treat myself to a dehydrator, and that will help me store quite a lot of this food over the winter to make it last a little bit longer, because obviously if it's fresh it won't last very long at all. So yeah, trying to be a bit savvy about it, you know. Of course, if you're going to do spring, summer, autumn, winter, all year round cropping, don't worry about interplanting the plants. If there's space in a pot somewhere and the previous plant hasn't quite died back yet, just go for it, plant it in, and then just get rid of the other one once it's done. No problem with doing that, as long as you're treating your soil well. No reason why you can't do that. So yeah, first year I'm going to do it, but I sort of know what I'm doing. Sort of. Mixed success. I still make mistakes. I'm a very young gardener, really. So I hope you've enjoyed a small look around my garden. She certainly enjoyed being outdoors. Don't we all? Hopefully I shall see you next week for another video. Got some DIYing to do next week, so got to get on that. Might take a while to sort out. See you later, guys. Bye. So proud. Can you see the gaggle of pigeons? There are people out there who would tell me right now to go out and get rid of the pigeons, scare them off, stop attracting them into the garden. I disagree heartily. They come in and they tidy up after the sparrows, pick up all the seeds that are on the floor, whereas the sparrows will only eat out of the feeders, so they've got a pretty good system going on out there. I don't see why I shouldn't encourage them in, really.